In this part of the demo, we are going to take a look at the Smart Predict and Forecast capabilities of Analytics Cloud. To start with, let's take a look at a time series forecast. So we're going to continue with our demo story. So I'm going to open the story that we have been working on so far, and I'm going to my edit mode so I can add additional charts and stories. As you can see from the last time, I've renamed and just added the color scheme and format to my page here. So here I have created a space for a forecast report that I'm going to add. So clicking on the pane here, I'm going to click on Insert. And what I'm going to do is create a time series chart that we are going to apply a forecast model to. So we're going to start and add our measures. So we want to do by net amount. And you can see here we are using our data source that we've imported. And we're going to add our dimension. So our dimension here is going to be by order date. And finally, we're going to apply a filter because I only worry and want to forecast it based on my current year. So make sure if you're doing it beginning of the year that you have enough time to do it. So if you're doing for beginning of the year, you might want to do a look back. If you have and you want to do the end of the year using this current year, it's fine. So I'm just going to use current year. Right. And I want to expand this and fit it to my current page. As so. And we can see the data here. Let's close the designer, so I don't need this now. I want to click on my hierarchy. So right now it's on that level 1, which is everything. And I want to go down to about level 4, which is quarterly, which is perfect. And I want to change now this report to a line time series report. So there we go. So now I have a time series and I have it by quarter as of this year. So next thing I want to do is add a forecast to this time series, and I'm going to go to more, I'm going to add, and I'm going to do a forecast. So we have advanced options, so we can do linear regression or triple exponent smoothing. But just click on automatic forecasting and let's see what it comes up with. So it's going to predict 1 quarter ahead to see, okay, what is my next quarter going to look like? And we can see here it as a linear option here that allows me to get an upper confidence of 87, lower confidence of 44 about, and an average amount with a forecast predictability of about 66,000. So with that, we have quite a bit of information, and we have now a forecast for our time series. Right, so this is quick and easy. We can do that right out of the box with our acquired data using the SmartMax ability directly from our options. But what if I want to do a bit more complicated predictive capabilities? And for that, we will need to go to and add data sets and use our predictive functionality in the options here are predictive scenarios. So before we start, we're going to take a look at what data we're going to use. You can either import the data sets, but we have already done so. And if you go under our public folder, so let's just save the model since I've added the predictive model here. Let's go into our public. So the public folder, we have data sets. And under data sets, we have loaded up 2 data sets here for train and for apply. So let's take a quick look at the train model. So under the train model, okay, it's just letting me know it's just loading a sample up of 2000. We can see we have the ID, the title, publisher, date of publications. We have an illustration guide, 0 being no illustrations, 1 being black and white, and somewhere in there is a 2 which has color and illustrations indication. And then we have the pages, the book size, number of sold copies, and the price for the book. And we're going to use this as our target to acquire and train our prediction model to utilize and target the price to be sold. And then we under our let's see, our apply model, we can say we have the same type of model set up here with the same target and data value, except we have a blank price. So we can use the train model to apply it to this data set and target the price to be filled in and predicted. So now that I have reviewed my data sets for my predictive model, I'm going to down and go to predictive scenarios, and I am going to create a regression model here. So I'm going to click regression. I want to save it under my folder, so I'm going to go under stories, my personal folder, and this is, I'm just going to give it an initial and say regression book prices. Okay, so I gave it a name and I'm going to click OK, which is going to bring me into my predictive scenario. So first thing we want to do is assign the training data set that we want to utilize for this. So I'm going to go into, click here, I'm going to go into my public, my data sets, and we want to use the one to train the data set. So here we see train, and now we're going to fill in the rest of the information here quickly. So let's take a quick look at our edit column details just to make sure the data is correct. We want to see the ID here is marked as our key ID field. And we want to check to make sure that the data, the statistical types is continuous. For example, date of publications is continuous. For illustrations, it's going to either be a 0, 1, or 2. So that's a nominal field. And we just want to make sure pages is continuous, size is continuous. Sold of copies is, we know how many numbers, so it's obviously continuous. And our target here is price, which can be a wide range of numbers, so it obviously has to be continuous. And we just want to make sure the title and publisher obviously is nominal. So let's go back. Now let's specify the target of our prediction, which we have targeted the price of the book. So we select that. And influences we want to exclude. We obviously want to exclude the ID of the book and the title of the book. Now, once I have this set up, I want to start training my model. Obviously, this can take up to a couple of minutes, so let this run. Once it has completed and loaded up, we can see here our global performance indicators and options here. So with a root square error of just 6.82, and we can see here a prediction confidence of over 99.46%, which is excellent. So also in this chart, we can see our influence contributor, the top being pages with a 53% contribution, illustrations with 42, and finally date of publication. So these are our 3 top influencers. And let's look at our predicted versus actual model. And you can see in the middle here we have 2 overlapping lines, one for our prediction and one for our actual. And you can see they are overlapping pretty well and are actually pretty accurate. We have no outstanding outliers, it looks like. And these dotted lines are our min and max prediction model. So with that, we're looking like we are pretty well, and we're pretty confident in our model here. With that, let's take a look at our influencers contributions, and we go into this chart here. Again, we can see what our top influences are, and with that we can kind of dive in to see what is positively influencing and what's negatively influencing. So here we can see, which makes sense, some of our classical books like 1948 to 1984, which is really older books, is heavily contributing to our line, and also our most recent books, 2013 to 2019, 2007 to 2012, which is more recent. These two are also contributing positive to the price. And books that are just a little bit older and not so recent, those are obviously contributing negatively here. So we can see anything 1984 to 91, 97, 2006, 92, 97. These are just more recent. They're not that quite old yet, but they are contributing negatively to the price. Let's take a look at one of the other contributions, which is illustrations. And we can see here books with no illustrations are obviously contributing negatively. Some with color, obviously the ones with color are contributing the most, and some with just black and white with some illustration is also contributing positively. And finally, we can take a look at the number of pages. And we can see books with over 2,800 pages, and those with more pages are obviously contributing more positively to the price. And those that are smaller book sizes, as we can see here, are contributing negatively to the price. So the more pages, the more expensive the book, the less pages, the cheaper the book, which makes sense. Now that I'm confident with this influencer's contribution, let's apply this to a predictive model. So we click the apply icon here. Let's change this to our empty data set we had prepared for the apply model. So let's change this and let's go into our public and select our data sets and select the apply regression model here. And we want to replicate the columns in this. So we want to do pretty much everything here except the price, because obviously the price is what's going to be outputted from this regression model. So we just select the data fields and dimensions we want to utilize, except for the price, which is calculated by the predictive model. And in this one, we're going to do a predictive value output. Right, so we want to select the predictive value output here, and we want to output this as under my public. I want to go to stories, and I want to do this prediction model under my folder. So I'm going to go QS book value predict and say OK. To finish, we click on apply, and now this model has applied to that data set. So we can verify that by going into our files and going into our stories and your folder and seeing the regression book prices. So here we can take a look at this predictive model. Click the wrong one. Let's go back. We can see here QS book value predict. Now we open this data set, and now we can view the data prediction here. So here we can see we have the copied fields over, and finally we have the predictive value now here. So now we can utilize this data set in our reports with the predictive value included. So we've seen in this demo how we utilize a time series and the forecasting capabilities directly in our charts and report. We've seen how we use the predictive modeling to create data sets with predictive data that we can utilize now in our model, include this data set in our stories to utilize the data value that we've predicted. As you can see, I've cleaned this data up. I've moved down the dimensions, so I only have one measure for predictive value. I've cleaned up my value predict data set, and I mentioned how we can now utilize this in stories. So I can go to my stories page and I can demonstrate how to utilize this. So you can see I've added another story page here called predictive pricing. I've gone ahead and added the data set. Let's go to edit. So you can see here I've included the data set here. I've brought in my QS book value predictive model, and I simply just added a table with the data values here and just added some color formatting. So you can see here now I have a new page, predictive pricing, with my QS predictive value predict model here. So you can see the predicted value for the book, the publisher, the page. So just simple as that. Now I have included the predictive pricing model in my story as well. Now this concludes how do we utilize the forecast capability directly with our time series charts and in our stories. We also see how we utilize the predictive scenarios to create our own predictive data sets, and we included that in our story as well. So let's continue our presentation to the next section.